Welcome to Leadership Matters, a podcast from the Bailey Group. I'm your host, Kaylee Thompson, president of and partner at the Bailey Group, where we believe better leaders create healthier workplace environments, healthier humans, and a better world. On this show, we explore real stories, practical insights, and honest conversations to help you lead yourself and others better. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Leadership Matters. Today, we've got David Magy with us. David is co-founder and principal over at Abeln, Magy, Underberg Associates.
Good job on the name.
Thank you so much.
Very impressive.
I did practice it once or twice.
You know, you did well. We picked names that were unpronounceable and unspellable.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. And as we were sort of scheming around how best to get the audience to know you, you came up with the wonderful idea of a game, which I'm always down for a game.
I'm a believer in being introduced with two truths and a lie.
Love it.
And what I will go with are ex-demolition derby driver,
Okay.
martial artist,
Okay.
and a needle pointer.
Now, I've had the good fortune to be able to get to know you over time. So I'm going to give listeners a minute to think about which of those is the lie I happen to know. So I do know about your experience collection at demolition derby driving. So I know that that is not the lie.
That is not a lie. I did that for 7 summers from age 32 to age 39.
And why did you stop?
It's really time consuming, and in all honesty, it is also hard on the body. You are purposely doing car crashes, and I only did 2 derbies per summer, but you are purposely crashing cars all evening.
Crazy.
And it's a lot of fun, but it just, Advil before and after.
I suppose.
Very, very important.
I would have never thought about the impact on the body, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Wow.
A lot of low impact car accidents.
So I also happen to know you are a black belt in karate.
Correct.
So you're a martial artist.
I received my black belt at age 45.
Well,
Something I always wanted to do, and I tested for my black belt with my youngest son, who was 14.
I did not know.
And we had our black belts together.
No way.
Very, very fun.
Ugh.
They did not allow relatives to spar in class, except they let us have 1 round a night in sparring class where my son and I could go after it.
Oh my God.
Great fun. He was way faster, but I was stronger at the time.
Interesting.
And so he would just beat the heck out of me, and then I would sidekick him into a wall.
When was the last time you sparred with him?
Oh, it's been years, thankfully.
Yep.
I am much older and do not do that anymore.
Right.
He is in great shape, and I'm just in some sort of shape, whatever that is.
Do you still practice at all?
I will occasionally, when no one is looking, do some of the katas, etc.
Huh.
When I'm working out, if no one is around, I might do some kicks to see if I am still flexible in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
But a lot of years have passed since I was 45.
Wow. Fascinating. Now, needle pointing.
Yes.
I happen to know, again, you have needle pointed and still do.
I still do. My wife will tell you that she's the only person I have not done a project for, so I have one that I am slowly working on. Slowly is the emphasis.
Can we know what that?
Well, it'll be a beautiful floral piece that will go up on the wall. But I've done prayer shawl bags for when a Jewish child turns 13, for my 3 kids, for nieces, for my father, may he rest in peace, for my father-in-law. I finally did one for me.
Wow.
And so, but my wife taught me how to do that when we were first married, and it just kept my hands busy.
Wow.
So it's something that I've done for years.
Did she grow up needle pointing?
She would needle point and still can, but actually does crocheting. And one of her hobbies is she crochets Afghans that she then donates to the Ronald McDonald House for families that are there for their kids. So she, I think, 60 or 70 last year that she crocheted.
In 1 year?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's constantly moving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you gotten into the crochet game yet?
No, not at all.
Someday.
That just doesn't seem like something I want to do. And I'm happy she doesn't. She does beautiful work, but she donates them to primarily Ronald McDonald House.
That is really neat.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So give us a sense, David. What have been the formative experiences that you've had that have shaped you into the person you are today?
My career theme has always been matching people and jobs. And interestingly, when I was hired right out of college in my first human resources job, although I think they called it personnel, I was hired to help replace some fees that were being paid to agencies that would place secretarial employees. We didn't even call them administrative employees at the time. And so my career early on, while I was a human resources generalist, really gravitated to matching people and jobs. I had a great first boss and great internal mentors that took this young kid under their wing and taught me how to recruit and to an extent evaluate. And that became an interest. And I will tell you that having great bosses and people who would let you do things is pretty incredible. And I had some marvelous people really in each of the companies that I've worked with before I went rogue and entrepreneurial.
Lucky you.
Yeah, fortunate, very fortunate.
How did you take us back? How did you first get into the world of human resources?
I can't even tell you how many majors I had at the University of Minnesota in the first 2 years. And it included interests from dentistry to being a rabbi to all sorts of things, and Jewish studies and sciences, and couldn't find anything I wanted and realized that I had a variety of different interests, which is sort of a life theme anyway, and ended up creating my own major.
Wow.
And it had 3 major areas: business, psychology with a focus on industrial psychology, and communications with a focus on business communications. Took a quarter at the University of Minnesota when they were on the quarter system to design, and everybody had to sign off on everything.
Wow.
But it ultimately, the theme ended up being human resources, working with people in that regard, and then ended up with a wonderful internship with the City of St. Paul Personnel Department.
Wow.
Great internship where I think I made a stipend of $2 an hour.
Nice.
And because I didn't qualify for need, but I qualified for the internship, it's like, okay, I'll work part-time so I can do a full-time internship. And it was a marvelous experience, but the majors led me to human resources.
What made that internship such a marvelous experience for you?
Another boss who just let me try things, let me do things, and expose me to different areas. So I know that the city of St. Paul has a police department, and they needed someone who could help role play an interruption in a meeting so that a police chief candidate would have to decide, do they leave the meeting to deal with one emergency or do they stay in another meeting? And he would just let me do that at age 20 or 21.
So you were role playing that?
I was role playing then. So I was involved with all sorts of different things way above my pay grade.
Sure.
But I had a boss who would teach me how to do things and say, okay, go. I helped develop tests for some of the civil service positions. It was great fun because I had a great boss who would let me try things, do things under his guidance.
That's so neat. And what a great first experience in the world of work.
Yeah. Long ago and far away. I don't think that one's on my LinkedIn page.
So you design your own major. That's a pretty bold move for a student.
It didn't seem that bold at the time. It happened that a dear friend of mine had done that as well and happened to tell me about it. I have to fast forward, though. I'm a dad of 3, and my youngest son could not find the major he wanted on campus. He went to the University of North Dakota, and we were chatting one day, and I said, do you know that I designed my own degree? And no. And I said, do you know our friend Barry designed his own degree? Said, no. I said, why don't you do that? And he did. 3 major areas, ended up with a minor in the process as well, but it could not find what he wanted and ended up with a great degree.
That is fascinating. So how did you decide on your 3 areas of focus as you're designing this degree?
I knew that I wanted to get into business, but I wanted to deal with people as well. And so it was that combination. industrial psychology got me away from being a straight psychology major. In all honesty, at that time, and maybe still today, if you're a psychology major without a lot of business experience, that may not be the best career path to take. The business school, long before University of Minnesota called it the Carlson School, would allow people to come in and take classes. You did not have to be accepted into the Carlson School. And communications had a set of courses on the St. Paul campus that were focused primarily on business communications. So I could bring everything together with business, but still deal with people in a more people-oriented function.
Interesting.
And we called it personnel at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you design this major.
Mhm.
You have a focus around business and something that is employable after you graduate.
There you go. Employment was important.
What did you anticipate doing with this personally designed major?
Well, I knew there were personnel positions, and there were a lot of agencies at the time that you could join, the equivalent of Manpower today, et cetera. But I wanted to work in a business. I was very, very stubborn, so networking helped that and I'm still stubborn. Networking helped that my parents would provide. If they knew someone at a company, I purposely would not apply there.
Interesting.
And was fortunate enough to see a position for an entry-level generalist, if you will, or relatively entry-level, with Farm Credit Services, Federal Land Bank specifically, and had the good fortune to be called in for an interview and ultimately hired. So I was very, very fortunate to get that position, and that launched my HR career.
So tell us about that first position that launched your HR career.
So
What were you
the
doing?
person that hired me, wonderful. It was an entry-level generalist position that required 2 years of experience. I had 3 months of experience
Sure.
in a completely different environment. But the person that hired me, she was the director of human resources. She had a son that had very, very similar background to me. And that background had nothing to do with human resources. We both taught religious school.
Okay.
And I taught religious school for a lot of years and had been teaching every Sunday at that point. We both sang in a choir, and we both happened to live on the same street in South Minneapolis.
So great qualifications.
Great qualifications, nothing to do with the ability to do anything relating to human resources. And she made the decision to hire me. I can't thank her enough. And fortunately, she was great. I had great internal mentors at Federal Land Bank and was able to do things above my pay grade with guidance. And then they sort of let me do things. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that transition into the world of work, given that I heard you talk about this entry-level position that really required 2 years of experience that you didn't have? Talk to us about how you navigated that, David.
I've never been afraid to ask questions. I'm certainly not quiet in any way, shape, or form. I've never been. And so I would ask people how to do things. It happened, sadly, the woman that hired me left on a medical leave a few months after I started.
Wow.
That thrust me into doing things, again, a bit ahead of where I should, a lot ahead of where I should be.
Wow.
But I had people that I had met in the first few months with the organization that I would say, how do you do this? What did she used to do? Can you help me with this? And people were wonderfully gracious and taught me and helped me and said, okay, you go do it because no one else is going to do it.
Wow. Where does that come from? So a real resourcefulness and this ability, humility in asking questions and figuring stuff out as you go.
I would have not called it humility, but thank you. I will credit parents, to be honest with you. A father who was entrepreneurial and just sort of found his way after a corporate career. A mother who mostly spent time at home until I think I got into junior high and then began working full time, but they were not afraid to call on their networks and ask questions as needed.
Yeah.
And I think I learned it from them, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah, good folks.
I say humility because there is, and I know I felt this pressure when I got into the world of work, there is this desire to prove your competence as you're doing a job and your qualifications of I can do this, I can handle this. And I think it does require humility to say, I don't know how to do this. I need another perspective. I need some insight. I need some information. And not everyone chooses to ask for that.
You're very kind to call it that. I will also say, though, I worked a lot of hours. I was never, and that was something that bothered me actually in an internship, that internship that I referenced.
Yeah.
At 4:30, the City of St. Paul Personnel Department closed down every day.
Mm.
And at 4:30, people walked out the door and it's like, really?
Wow.
But what if I'm in the middle of something? And my boss was the same way. If you're in the middle of something, you just keep doing it.
Sure.
But my parents were that way. You don't leave a job just because the whistle blew. So I was willing to put in time. And it's interesting the people you talk to and meet if you get in early or stay late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
Seemed to work.
And it shows a real commitment to the outcome.
Well, at the end of the day, that's what they judge you on,
Yes.
I think. And again, it seemed to work. I had a great career at Farm Credit. I had, and then Honeywell and Pillsbury after that before I went rogue, if you will, an entrepreneur.
I can't wait to get to the rogue part. And I did not know that your father had an entrepreneurial spirit.
He retired. So he worked, he was a mechanical engineer who worked for an architectural firm in their mechanical department
Oh,
and retired, lasted, I think, 4 hours of retirement and joined another firm and then worked there for a number of years and then started his own thing.
and what was his own thing that he
So
started?
he was a mechanical engineer designer and worked until the day before he died. He died at 91.
Wow.
He would have worked that day, but he died right after midnight. So he just loved what he did. He was very talented, great mind, and did mechanical engineer design.
What type of impact did that have on you? I mean, I know you talked earlier about how he was tenacious at bringing about the outcome. What other impact?
I will tell you that when people ask me when I will retire, there is no real date in mind, just because I happen to, and he always liked what he did, and that was very, very helpful. I like what I do a great deal, and that keeps me going to work every day. So the idea of my retiring is just not even an idea. And my wife, God love her, knows that I would be miserable in retirement and take her down in the process.
That is so funny. And it's great to have spouses that recognize what you need.
And she is marvelous, simply marvelous,
Oh,
thankfully.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And what a gift to you to have a father who really found something he loved doing and did until his very,
And truly did. And he had a number of interests as well.
yeah.
Incredible. He practiced calligraphy and would do certificates and proclamations. I mean, incredible stuff. He also was a portrait artist. Very, very talented, considering he was an engineer.
Yes.
And he wrote music. Incredibly accomplished pianist.
Wow.
And so always had outside diverse interests as well.
I'm
And so it was
seeing.
that fun. Yeah.
I'm seeing where your diversity of experiences and interests come from.
And that makes some people crazy, and I enjoy that. So
That's neat. A very full life.
I will not complain.
So talk to us about your out of college, first job in a very big stretch. It sounded like a big stretch of a role. What'd you learn about yourself in that role?
You can accomplish what you want if you, in all honesty, put in the time and just have a desire to do so. That I would never work alone because I needed to be surrounded by smart people that I could ask questions and learn from, and really applied that to this day. I can't work alone. I need smart people. I'm fortunate to have a great team that I work with. But it was something I learned early on, that I needed to be surrounded by smart, challenging people that you could ask questions of and not get an eye roll. It's like, really, you don't know that? They would just be willing to lend a hand and help.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the culture like at that company?
It was an agricultural company. While it was a bank, and a big bank, we were the mortgage lending arm of Farm Credit Services. I worked with people who had an incredible work ethic. So when I was hiring loan officers for them as part of my job, these were kids that weren't inheriting the farm or weren't going to be working on the farm. So they went to school for an ag business degree or an agricultural economics degree. They worked hard. They would do what it takes to get the job done. Farming doesn't necessarily have you make hay when the sun shines.
Yes.
They take that seriously.
Yeah.
I was working with people who had a work ethic that was incredible and were willing to work as a team to get things done. So it was a marvelous culture.
So where do you go from there?
Ended up leaving Farm Credit. They reorganized. I ended up promoted and moved back to a position. It was a great organization.
Yeah.
I loved the position, but wanted something else.
Yeah.
Found an ad at Honeywell, joined Honeywell, and was promoted within it. So as an individual contributor, as a senior staffing specialist.
That was your first title?
My first title at Honeywell. Was promoted a year later when my boss was promoted. I became the manager of staffing and EEO for Honeywell's corporate offices and was there about a year and a half longer in that role, so 2.5 years there. And then I received a call from the person that ultimately hired me at the Pillsbury Company. He said, I don't remember how, he said, I got your name. Would you consider coming over here as a manager of staffing? Would you like to interview for that? And I interviewed later that day and went through a couple of other rounds of interviews. I had already decided, and I know we'll come to this, but I'd already decided that maybe corporate life wasn't what I necessarily wanted forever.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Pillsbury was it was another Fortune 100 company. It was in the Twin Cities, did not require relocation, a completely different industry, and they offered more money. It's like, okay, nothing wrong with joining the Pillsbury Company, and ultimately joined them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you met the best boss of your career.
I did. Not necessarily the one that hired me.
Yep.
But one of the last bosses I had at Pillsbury, we used to joke a lot when the Pillsbury was constantly restructuring and going through not easy times necessarily towards the end of my tenure there. But we used to joke when our boss calls, just get her name, because we weren't always sure who it would be.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because they restructured so commonly. But I had a great boss there, and it was ultimately under him that I resigned from the Pillsbury Company, which is a weird story, but a marvelous human.
So I definitely want to get into that story. Before we go there, you alluded earlier to the fact that you're working in corporate America and thinking about maybe this isn't where I want to be for the rest of my life.
So my goal, I joined Honeywell. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Fortune 100, big company, didn't have to relocate. I'm from the Twin Cities. My wife's from the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Things are good.
You had made it.
I get promoted to manager within a year. I am now in management with a Fortune 100 company, and I immediately said, I'm a manager. What does it take to be director? And that was sort of the next big level. And that the answer was 10 more years and even less hair than I already had and more gray. And I said, well, that's an interesting conclusion. What does it take to be VP? And the answer was another 10 or more years and less hair and more gray. But I didn't necessarily like the politics. Now, I don't want to disparage Honeywell or Pillsbury. These are great organizations. And I'm still in touch with one of my bosses from Honeywell. Pillsbury, some great friends that I met there that I'm still in touch with. These are wonderful organizations. But I am a person that didn't always like some of the rules that big corporations had and huge policy manuals. And some of the politics were not to what I considered to my liking. And so I began to question, did I want to stay at a Fortune 100 big company in management, whatever title that meant, for the rest of my career?
Sure.
And so really began to question it. So when Pillsbury came to me, it was a relatively easy decision because there was no downside. Another company, another industry, no relocation. They were 2 miles apart. I mean, it was not a big decision to make.
Right.
But it was also, I knew from Honeywell that I probably would not finish my career in a big company.
So for those of us that haven't had experience in Fortune 100 companies, give us a sense for what that's like.
Oh, goodness. Amazing resources, not endless, but incredible training opportunities. They would teach you based on, for human resources, we would go to human resource focused training just offered inside the company. Incredible opportunities to travel, to do things, resources to try different studies and projects. It was marvelous.
Yeah.
But there was also a hierarchy.
Okay.
And while emails did not exist when I was at Honeywell and Pillsbury, you really, memos had to copy a whole bunch of people. You just had to make sure you were covering off on everybody because no one likes surprises.
Yeah.
And I was corporate at Honeywell. I was corporate at Pillsbury also, but at Honeywell, the divisions were where the money was made and corporate was where we spent it. So the divisions really were more important, but corporate had some coordination roles that I had. You just had to understand the politics of that. That really, at the end of the day, corporate would say things, but the work got done at, the residential division or the building controls division, or at that time, military avionics or undersea systems or whatever. Yeah.
Interesting. I never thought
They
about
all
that
had
before.
acronyms, by the way.
I bet you had a whole list of acronyms.
And I had to learn new ones when I went to Pillsbury.
Interesting.
And by the way, the toughest one was TPC. I went a month without knowing what that was, but everybody used it constantly at Pillsbury. And I went to my boss one day and said, I think I've got it down. I know all the acronyms for, fresh frozen vegetables and prepared dough products, blah, blah, blah. But what is TPC? He looked at me, he said, the Pillsbury Company. And I am rarely speechless, as you're finding out. And I simply turned around and walked out of his office. I had nothing I could say. The Pillsbury Company.
I wouldn't have thought about that. Give me an example of when it would have been used.
Well, it would just say TPC. As you would say, I would call it Pillsbury, but legally the name was the Pillsbury Company.
Got it.
So the was part of its name.
Yeah.
So just as shorthand, people would say it's the Pillsbury Company,
Sure.
TPC.
Right.
So at TPC, this is how we do things. And, when you're over at such and so, TPC is known for this. TPC.
What is this TPC?
And it took me a month before I finally said, so what is TPC?
That is so fun.
The Pillsbury Company.
Yeah, I never realized how every organization really has their own inside speak. And acronyms are a very natural part of that because as humans, we try to make things more efficient and shorten things. And it is funny when you get into a different ecosystem or an outsider gets into your ecosystem and they're like, what is all this jargon that you speak of?
And we all have it. Every industry has its jargon. You are correct. You are correct.
So you make the leap from Honeywell over to Pillsbury.
Correct.
How are you feeling? What are you thinking?
So I knew I would not retire at Pillsbury.
Mm.
So one of the first things that I did was, you don't remember, but in the late 80s, I joined there in December of 86. And word processing then and now have nothing in common. And I created
a name.
Pardon? Pretty much.
The name.
And that's it. I created a document called Age 40 PLN, which stood for plan, but documents could not be labeled with anything more than 8 letters or numbers. That was back in the day.
Yep.
And I picked age 40 because that was a good time to have a midlife crisis. And I decided I was going to make a transition from corporate life. And I started adding to that document every day as to what I was looking for culturally, experientially, so on and so forth. And it actually led me to wanting to be more entrepreneurial in a smaller organization, but never alone, always working with smart people.
And how old are you when you first typed the
I joined
document?
Pillsbury in 86. I would have been 29.
Okay. 29 years old, putting your midlife crisis on a sheet of paper.
There we go. And I ultimately left there at age 32.
Wow.
Yes. So spent 2.5 years there. Great company. Fattening place to work. We had young kids, and when my wife would bring them downtown occasionally, I was friends with the people in the test kitchens,
Wow.
and my kids just knew there was cake or cookies when they came to my office.
Favorite Pillsbury product?
Pillsbury owned Häagen-Dazs. And I know that the couple of times I visited Häagen-Dazs headquarters in Teaneck, New Jersey, they had a scoop your own where most companies have coffee or water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Innocent little cups and 5-gallon tubs of Häagen-Dazs ice cream.
And probably every flavor.
Oh, God, yes.
Wow.
And then the ingredient suppliers would bring things in, so you'd have boxes of pralines and boxes. I mean, just endless food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Fattening place to work.
Do you still buy Pillsbury?
If it is right for, yeah. I mean, my wife is a scratch baker and cook, so, Pillsbury flour, yeah. Pillsbury frosting sometimes.
Okay.
I don't know if they still have Totino's pizza.
I don't know either.
I don't either, but they owned that brand.
Wow. Did you eat a lot of that back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah, because it was available.
Yeah.
Yeah, and little kids like pizza.
I was just going to say, it's a great family
Yeah,
staple.
little kids like pizza, so it's all good.
So you get to Pillsbury, you're finding your way in this large organization, knowing I'm not going to retire from here, but this is certainly not a step back from where I was at Honeywell.
Not at all. Pillsbury is I was fortunate to do well at Pillsbury. Pillsbury politics were different than Honeywell politics, but they were politics.
How so? How are they different?
Different type of organization. So Honeywell is an engineering-driven organization. And so really it was the innovation in engineering that drove new products, et cetera.
Fascinating.
And you just needed to know that as part of the world.
Yep.
Pillsbury was a marketing-driven organization. Very, very different. They also were different from a gender standpoint. You would have more females in senior leadership at Pillsbury than you did at Honeywell. Honeywell was stereotypical male, certainly in the mid-'80s. Pillsbury was more female in terms of people in management.
How did that impact the culture, if at all?
I'm not sure it really did. You had good leaders.
Yep.
And frankly, a good leader, I don't care if they're male, female, black, white, green, or blue. If they're a good leader, they're a good leader.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure it really did.
Okay.
But you have a range of human behavior in any group of people.
Yeah.
You have people that are more political than others. You have people that will share information and other people that will hoard information. And it didn't matter where you were.
Fascinating. So you're at Pillsbury.
I was at Pillsbury. The boss that hired me was not my favorite human being. I found out over time.
What was your first impression of that boss?
Um,
As you're interviewing for the role, considering...
He was delightful and had a long Pillsbury history, so it was good to know him. I will say that he was very flamboyant.
Okay.
And well known for that.
Interesting.
Did some great work, but at some point must have gotten in the wrong camp.
Interesting.
Ultimately, I was looking at leaving Pillsbury but staying within the company because I didn't want to do another corporate move.
Sure.
Pillsbury owned Häagen-Dazs, as I mentioned, and there was a role at Häagen-Dazs that I was considering. It would have involved relocation.
And that test kitchen.
And the test kitchen, which had its advantages. And my wife and I were looking at booking a flight to Teaneck, New Jersey to look at housing and where you could live if the offer came through. And I received phone messages, used to be pink slips, little pink phone message pads. And I remember coming back to my office one day and there was a pink slip from another management person within Pillsbury saying, "Don't leave the office until you talk to me." It's like, okay. So I went up to her office and she said, "You may have heard today that your boss's boss was let go." And I said, "Yes, everybody heard that."
This is not a secret.
And it wasn't a secret, and people reacted interestingly to it.
How so?
He was brilliant, but not necessarily the nicest human being on the planet. So there weren't a lot of tears shed.
Yep.
She said, tomorrow you need to know your boss is being let go.
Mm.
And I hear you are looking outside of Pillsbury. And I said, excuse me? And she said, well, I know you're looking at a position within Haagen-Dazs. And I looked at her, and the woman is brilliant. And I said, we own Haagen-Dazs. I'm not looking outside the company. She said, do you want your boss's job? And I said, he's one of the reasons that I'm looking at moving to New Jersey. And she said, it's yours. Don't tell anybody for 48 hours.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Great news. Took over the staffing department at Pillsbury.
Okay.
And was there when Pillsbury was the original offer to take them over, a hostile takeover offer from Grand Metropolitan.
Wow.
Out of the UK, came to buy Pillsbury in cash. And that was in October of 88.
Okay.
I would have been 31.
Mm.
My boss called me, a different boss. Now,
And this is
the boss you implied.
yes, one of your favorite
Yes,
bosses.
marvelous person. And he was the person I was telling you earlier that, if he called you and said, we have a problem, it wasn't, you're a problem, we need to deal with it. It wasn't political. It was, hey, we have a problem, let's work on it and solve it.
Yeah.
He called me up. He said, we have a problem. Can you come to my office? Sure. And he said, well, here's the problem. We have this takeover potential. If we stay independent, we're going to have to do a major cut.
Mm-hmm.
If we are taken over, we're going to have to do a major cut. You know how to do outplacement because you learned that at Honeywell. And we want you to run it no matter what. And you head up recruiting. And we need to get through a big college recruiting season to keep our presence out. And we recruited at Harvard and Stanford. And
Wow.
he said, and you know how to do that. And my boss wants you to do both of those, and he wants to promote you. And I looked at this guy and I said, I'm missing the problem. And he and I had some heart-to-hearts, and he knew that I was unhappy there, and he wasn't necessarily happy there. And he said, I know you want to leave. And I looked at him and I said, tell him I resign. Tell him, being his boss, tell him I resign. And my boss and I worked out a deal that I would do both of those projects, and I would walk out with a severance package.
Wow.
Went home that night. We have 3 young kids. One is not a year old.
Mm.
And I looked at my wife and I said, honey, I resigned today. And I didn't tell her the rest of the story yet. And she looked at me and she said, it's about time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have heard that story before, and I got goosebumps then.
Yeah.
I just got goosebumps
Yeah.
again.
She knew that I was miserable. I didn't realize how miserable I had been and was spreading that misery.
Yeah.
And her comment was, it's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm thinking about you standing in your boss's office and saying, tell your boss I resign.
Yes.
What is going through your head at that moment?
A little voice pops up, calls me a name that I will not say on a podcast, and basically says, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
You are, think old terms. You are the primary breadwinner. My wife worked part-time, half-time as an x-ray technologist. We have 3 young kids.
Mm.
What am I thinking resigning from a great role and an offer of a promotion? But I was just miserable there.
Mm.
And clearly that came out right in that meeting. It's like, just tell him I resigned.
How, to what extent had you thought about resigning prior to this conversation in an immediate or short term?
No, not an idiot. Age 40 plan was 31 at that time.
You got 9 years left to work
Yeah.
your plan.
And I knew that I probably wouldn't make it till age 40, but I wasn't planning on doing it that quickly.
Mm.
So it wasn't a foreign concept, but the timing was quicker than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially to go into that meeting, not even having that as a possibility on your mind and leaving that meeting with such a very dramatic decision put on the
It
table.
was, and I'm not sure if I understood at that moment the gravity of it.
Yeah.
But I also had a deal where I would be there for a while. So I wasn't, just quitting that day.
Yeah.
And I had a severance package on the way out.
Yep.
And interestingly, with that boss, we made the deal on a handshake.
Mm.
And you didn't need it in writing with him. He was that kind of guy.
Wow.
You just shook hands, and it was as good as a contract.
How much longer did he stay with the organization?
He left before I did. I
Okay.
stayed 8 months.
Okay.
And he left, I will say, 5 or 6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
How were those final 8 months for you?
Painful. More stressful than I thought. I probably should have left earlier because I would go to work not liking the place I was working. And Pillsbury was a great employer, so I don't mean to disparage the company, but I didn't want to be there.
Yep.
But I had 2 tasks that I had to get through, one of which was recruiting people to join the company, and that was especially painful. Leading a function to get people to join a company that no one knew, but I was going to be leaving. And the outplacement side, I coordinated a lot of people who had to leave or who were going to be leaving and made sure they were being well taken care of in terms of vendors and partners that could help them with their transition. So that was a fun part of the job. The recruiting wasn't as fun for me.
I can see how that would be really challenging.
Yeah.
As you're in a lot of pain in an organization. And it is interesting, this concept of 2 truths. 2 things can be true. Pillsbury can be a great employer, and also you can have a really challenging time in that system if it's not.
It just wasn't for me.
Right.
So, it was 8 months of not a healthy place to be for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself? What advice did you need to hear at that time?
That it's okay to follow a passion, that it's okay to listen to your inner self, that the one thing I might say is don't act rashly. But I had been thinking about this, had been writing about this. I had, a good portion of a plan written out in terms of what I wanted to be doing and the people I wanted to be doing it with. So I had a roadmap.
Yeah.
But it would be follow those things. I remember when I joined Honeywell, I had a boss my boss's boss, who became my boss, the one I'm still in touch with.
Yes.
And he said 13 more years. And I said, what happens in 13 years? He says, I can retire.
Wow.
That's like a prison sentence if you don't like where you are. And he was marvelous. But he was counting the days to retirement and counting them with years. And I would never recommend doing that if people need to follow their passion and be prepared for it. Don't act rashly, but do something so that you are ready when the door opens.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to open your door yourself.
Well, in this one, I sort of kicked through.
So what was your passion that you were following? I mean, give us a sense.
It's the career theme today. It's matching people and jobs. And I really did enjoy that. And so when I looked at leaving Pillsbury, I looked at either executive search. Oddly, I'm doing that now. Or I looked at outplacement, working with people who were laid off or terminated and helping them find their path forward.
Yeah.
And I ended up joining one of the vendors that Pillsbury used that I actually inherited when my boss was let go. I ended up joining one of those companies. They were a startup, a year and a half, I think, experience. So they were pretty new when my boss selected them.
I was going to say,
wow. I became their 4th full-time employee, 7th person on the payroll when I left the Pillsbury company 8 months later.
What was it about this startup that you would speculate your boss saw in them or chose to bring them on for?
Really good people, well-credentialed people. And I mean well-credentialed people, masters in counseling, licensed psychologist, a really good model for helping people transition and a flexible model. So they didn't require you to spend thousands upon thousands. You could do things on hourly packages. So we could say, here's your budget for transition, et cetera. There was a lot of flexibility. But I have to tell you, they did a great job in terms of what they were doing. And I had the chance of comparing vendors because I ended up running that program. So I got to look at vendor versus vendor and see he did a better job in helping people transition. This was one of the companies that did a great job and with wonderful people.
What great insight you were able to.
So I had a lot more data on it than anybody else had at the time.
Sure.
And was able to use that in my own transition.
So you're contemplating your next move.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide to move towards that vendor company?
So I looked at the idea of search,
Mm-hmm.
and one of these search firms that I've been networked to, I met with the head of their office, and this search firm was at that time and still is one of the largest search firms on the planet.
Yeah.
They had a Minneapolis office.
Yeah.
Here I am, probably at this point 32, and I went to interview for a search position. And I walked into his office, and he looked at me and he said, "You're too young." That was his opening line. And my sarcastic response was, "But I'm losing my hair." And he and I ended up chatting for probably an hour. But he talked about the fact, certainly for that company, that being older was really helpful in the executive search field, that people would not look at a kid like me at 32 and think I had the wisdom to help select a VP for a corporation or a president or a CFO or whatever.
Wow.
And while that didn't turn me off search completely, I was looking at search or outplacement career management and had developed a friendship with the owners at the time of a company called Career Dynamics. And that one led me to the right place. It was going to be a fun place to work, great team. I knew all the people, and ultimately they made me an offer, and it's like, yeah, this is the place to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk about that transition from a Fortune 100 to a startup.
We had revenues at the time at Career Dynamics that were 1/8 of the college recruiting budget I had at Pillsbury.
Wow.
And I remember when one of the owners of Career Dynamics came to me, and he was the CFO, if you will, recovering CPA. And by the way, that is Abeln of Abeln Magy, Underberg Associates. So we are still in business together years and decades later.
Yeah.
He came to me and he said, if all business stopped today, we could go for 3 months without any problem. And he saw me turn white. He just saw me go pale. Yet, if you think about it, Pillsbury could not go with no business for 5 days before they would go out of business. If you really think about a big company and Pillsbury, constant transactions selling, Green Giant corn and Tortino's pizza and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I mean, it's a constant machine. If it stops, there's no cash.
Sure.
Career Dynamics had a bank account.
Sure.
He thought that was the coolest thing in the world, and I thought, what the heck had I done? And I've started rethinking what security, well, I'd already started rethinking what security meant, but security, a lot of people held, it was Pillsbury, it was Honeywell, it was a big company that would take care of you, and I saw they would let go of people, and security, I found, was here. And he was so excited about this 3-month runway, and I'm going, oh my God, that's a problem, but it wasn't. It was security, actually.
Yeah.
And I could help lengthen that 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about yourself at Career Dynamics?
Same sort of thing. You need to create the path. I've always been a morning person, so I always got there early to sort of get the day going. That also meant I made the first pot of coffee. No one ever complains about the first pot of coffee, by the way, because it's there. So no one complains about that. Learned that you create your own destiny, but also learn the importance of working with really good, smart, committed people. And the owners of Career Dynamics, when I joined the company, were good, smart, hardworking, committed people. And feel very, very fortunate to have landed there. And truly, the Abelns, so it was husband and wife, Mary and Ken Abeln, and then a third partner as well, not related. And then I joined and he became a partner a year and a half later. But they were just good, hardworking, committed, balanced, good values people. Family values, religious, not over the top, but had faith as one of their values. I mean, it was just joining people that you had a lot in common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You felt that alignment that was missing
Yeah,
for the
very much
previous.
so. And again, small team, really bright people that were all working for the same goal.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was marvelous.
So talk about the shift from career dynamics to taking a leap and
Starting over.
Yeah.
So I remember my father-in-law, who is 90 today, not birthday today, but he's 90. When I left the Pillsbury company, and he's looking at his oldest daughter, 3 grandchildren,
Yeah.
and he asked me truly why I would leave a real job and join this company he'd never heard of. I can tell you he never asked when I left Career Dynamics and started a company from scratch with the Abelens, Mary and Ken. Um, Career Dynamics was very successful. Great company, great team, great people. Still in touch with a lot of them, still work with some. There were 35 FTEs, which for an outplacement company is huge for a single office. And I spent more time running it than doing it. And I don't like running things. And while I am a principal and actually the owner of David Magy, Underberg Associates now, I don't look at it that way. I've got a great team that I work with every day, and I feel very lucky in that regard. But I spent more time running the company in internal meetings than I did doing the work that I love to do. And I decided I needed to find something else. I just wasn't happy. And when you are not happy and you own a company or own part of a company that at its core is career counseling, you should listen to that. And I did. And ultimately decided to transition from that, stayed in an ownership role, a small percentage of the company. And with the Abelens, we started the search firm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you made the leap from outplacement into search.
Into search. So it was one of the areas I was looking at anyway. Again, the theme is matching people in jobs. So still doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
We were starting from zero. There were some great search firms and still are in the market.
Yeah.
And I remember we were offered our first CFO search, and the question was, well, how many CFO searches have you done?
Yeah.
And the answer was 0. And the question, sort of stammering question from the client was, and why should we hire you?
Right.
And ultimately, we did a great job on that.
Yeah.
But we were starting from scratch. We'd also funded the company in our lives so that we could go a year without revenue if we needed to.
Smart.
So we were able to start from nothing.
Sure.
But it was getting your name out there. Fortunately, we had a good reputation from Career Dynamics.
Sure.
People knew who we were. They knew the work we could do. And so a lot of people gave us a chance. And we had a really good network of people we called upon as customers or prospects that became customers that were in large corporations that hired us to do searches.
Wow.
That has since changed. We now focus on small to medium employers. But at that time, it was a great network to continue to tap into because they knew the work we did previously.
Yeah. So given your experience, your knowledge, your education, what is some actionable advice that you would give to the professionals out there?
Oh, goodness. No rash decisions.
And that served you.
That did. I would tell people, so I will write things down. So I had that, it wasn't a joke, it was an age 40 plan. And when I was looking at leaving Career Dynamics, even though I wasn't even 40, I called it my age 45 plan because I already had an age 40 plan.
Sure.
So I couldn't, keep the same name. But I really jotted thoughts down so that I could see what themes were developing. So every day I would add a couple of words to the plan. So the advice is really think things through, ask other people, find a trusted group of advisors that can be friends, that can be relatives, that can be whatever that you can bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
And continue to learn. Nothing stops. So look at what the new research is in new different areas. What is happening in the outplacement field for me? What is happening in the search field? What is happening with small businesses? just continue to be curious. But a lot of it was asking questions, writing things down, making sure the decision was one that was well thought out. And then I have to tell you, and we've talked about her before, I have a spouse that's wildly supportive. So I feel very, very lucky that she is in my corner going, yeah, if you want to do it, you've thought it through, make it happen.
Yeah.
And she's always been there with me.
Such an X factor.
Feel very lucky.
That's fantastic. I also heard in there, know yourself and know what you need and stand up for it.
Yeah. I don't hide my misery. And my wife proved that when she said it's about time. I let her know I was leaving Pillsbury. But if you're that uncomfortable, you need to listen to yourself. And while it was a reaction to resign from Pillsbury, it was planned to transition from Career Dynamics. But yeah, it's listen to what your body's telling you. Listen to what your mind is telling you. And if it's a theme, it's for real.
Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful. Thank you for your time.
Oh, goodness.
It's
My
been
pleasure. Thank you
fantastic.
for your time today. Honored to be on this podcast.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've been hoping that you would join us, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. And thanks for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Leadership Matters. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Leadership Matters. If today's episode resonated with you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you care about? To learn more about the work the Bailey Group is doing in the world, check us out at thebaileygroup.com or follow us over on LinkedIn. We love sharing useful articles, helpful resources, and valuable tools to help you expand your leadership capacity. Like and subscribe, and join us next time for more honest conversations.